the attorney for Hunter Biden, Abby Lowell, is saying that these charges are effectively illegitimate. And there's a lot of people who have a variety of opinions like this, and we want to make sure that you hear both what they have to say as well as those on the other side. So Lowell put out a statement saying that Hunter Biden had repaid his taxes in full 2 years ago, and that based on the facts and the law, if Hunter's last name was anything other than Biden, as we've been saying, the charges in Delaware and now California would not have been brought. And also goes out of the way to point out that the special counsel in this particular case, who was appointed by Trump, is bowing to now many months of pressure from right-wing politicians, including James Comer, and right-wing media to come up with something, to do something. And so Lowe said that he's planning to push for dismissal of the gun charges next week, and we'll have to see what ends up happening with the tax charges. But as Rayyvana, you pointed out, he has admitted to this stuff, obviously, in the details of the prior plea deal that's now been effectively voided. So that makes their side, it's a little bit more difficult. And so they seem to be pushed into a position where they kind of have to do a version of what Trump does, where he says that the only reason any of these charges have come about is because of who he is. That doesn't mean that it isn't perhaps more true in this particular case, because Hunter Biden has incredibly low-level charges and nobody would have ever even heard about it. So what do you think about their strategy going forward? What should they do in light of all of this evidence that's coming out?
Yeah, I think that their job right now before the trial in the media, is just to continue to reiterate the line that he's already paid the money back, which I highly doubt his attorney would be saying if it wasn't true. And to continue to push the narrative that this would not be happening if his last name wasn't Biden, because as I mentioned earlier, it's very rare for felony charges to be brought against somebody after they've already paid off their tax bill, including any penalties that have been added to it after the fact, which is partially because the IRS is so severely limited in resources and again has been underfunded because of several previous administrations stripping it of its teeth to protect the wealthy specifically. But once they get to court, their job's gonna be a lot harder because he did technically not pay the taxes. He did what he's been accused of. So their argument essentially just rests on, in other circumstances, anyone else would not be charged with the same level of felonies, the same crimes, would not be facing jail time. But it might be a losing argument, and I think that inevitably he's going to end up doing some time, if not just having to pay heavy fines. I would be surprised if he doesn't end up doing some jail time, which is unfortunate for him because it seems like he's really just caught in the crosshairs of Republicans trying to frame Joe Biden as corrupt, but not having anything to stick on him. So they had to find the closest corruption to Biden as they could. And that just happened to be his son, Hunter. But I maintain that dude's rock and that he should, especially because he paid off the taxes. I don't think that he is in any danger of being a repeat offender. Any of the justifications that legal theory provides for why we put someone in jail, aside from strictly being punitive, they don't serve any function here. So I don't see any real reason why he needs to go to jail, but I think that he probably will.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes down to the technicalities, I'm not an attorney like you, but it would make sense that, he may get some time, but he's not a violent criminal or anything along those lines, so it probably won't be that much. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I think that more likely than not, I mean, I don't know, could be wrong, but when he gets out of prison, he'll probably write a book or something. And we'll end up, hearing his story in some type of way. I can't imagine that won't happen. So when it does, I'm sure we'll be talking about it.
Yeah. We're gonna see, obviously we'll be covering it. I just want to close this section by saying, I agree that he's being caught in their attempt to pitch Joe Biden as corrupt. And one of the weirdest things about American politics is all they want to do is show that Joe Biden is corrupt. and they have to go to these contortions to do it when there are way easier, simpler, more obvious and fact-based ways to do that, but that they can't do because they're just as bad in those areas. They could talk about literally decades of campaign contributions from wealthy individuals and corporations. They could talk about promises he's made that in the end he has not come through on, when his donors clearly would prefer that he not act. There's so much they could do to sketch out a story of corruption, of deference to the economic status quo, but they like all of that stuff. Their politicians are just as guilty. They don't want to prime the voters to think about politics in that way. It reminds me of in Swingers, when he's saying like, you're this big bear and you're looking at this bunny and you don't know how to kill it. They could do it. They could kill the bunny Biden, except that they would be killing themselves at the same time. And so instead they need to go through all of these ridiculous conspiratorial gymnastics, and it makes them end up looking ridiculous. And to that end, I want to demonstrate a little bit of that. In light of these new indictments against Hunter Biden, people like Representative James Comer would love to declare victory and are trying to do that. But the links are not as strong as they would like it to be. And even many Republicans are having to acknowledge that. Let's start with Peter Doocy.
House Republicans are still trying to connect money. They're trying to trace money that originated overseas and went into Hunter Biden's accounts, two accounts that are controlled by Joe Biden. The House Oversight Committee has been at this for years, and they have so far not been able to provide any concrete evidence that Joe Biden personally profited from his son Hunter's overseas business, but they are going to try again with this impeachment inquiry that's set to start next week.
They are already, like in some cases, both politicians and other Fox figures trying to do that with these particular indictments. There was, I forget exactly who it was, I believe it was a woman on the Five who was saying like Joe Biden's tax issues are going to be a major issue in the impeachment inquiry. This is not Joe Biden's taxes. Joe Biden is not alleged to have been spending money on cars and clothes and assorted women and all of that. Like, I know that you would prefer that. That would make your job easier rhetorically, but it's just not here. And it reminds me of earlier this week when the payments for the Ford Raptor were being discussed, and they were so desperate to try to link it to Joe Biden in a way that makes him look corrupt. And even in this case, Brian Kilmeade had to point out that that was not the case.
And I think the smoking gun that people missed on Monday was Chairman Comer releasing that there's a monthly stipend from one of these shell companies of Hunter's going to Joe Biden, connecting the dots.
He says he's paying him back for a truck. I'm just telling you what he said.
They were continuous payments.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, but regardless, this smells like a bribe to me. What did Hunter do to earn this money? Nothing at all. And really, this is influence peddling. That's exactly what this is.
The money was from his father. What influence peddling? Like his father's exerting influence over him? He said the money is a bribe. No, sorry, it was just for a truck. Still smells like a bribe. It was from his father for a car. Like, are they literally getting to the point on the Republican Party where they say you are not allowed to transfer a few $1,000s to your child so they can have a vehicle? I don't think that's actually the position they want to be in. They just need something. And even like it's a line too far for Brian Kilmeade to cross, and it led to those awkward silences as you heard. Jackson, what do you think?
It seems like when you really take a step back and look at the whole Republican Party, and I've said this before, but so much of what we're looking at is them just having not changed up their strategy in so many decades. Because typically them talking about something that Joe Biden was doing or Hillary Clinton was doing may have held some weight. And a lot of the time it's actually real. But as you pointed out, you got Donald Trump who has all these indictments, Jared Kushner with the $2 billion. Trump bringing these documents back. He had over a year and a half to return them. And then you pointed out how on Fox 5, one of the contributors was talking about Biden's tax situation when that's really not even what's being talked about in the case at all. So they're just bored and they have nothing. It's just a big game to them. And unfortunately for all of us, millions of people are going to show up to the polls to vote for Donald Trump. But unfortunately for Republicans, not as many really necessarily as they're thinking, because all of this just looks bad. And the closer we get to the general election and all Trump's talking about is how he won in 2020 and how he's a victim, Joe Biden this and Hunter Biden that, people are going to start looking more and more at policy. So it's really just a race to the bottom between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, like usual.
I think that you made a really good point too about the Republicans just running the same playbook that they did before, because crooked Hillary was a really successful line for them in the run up to the 2016 election, because it resonated with people who knew Hillary Clinton in multiple positions of power, who obviously were familiar with Bill Clinton. It was a lot easier to stick that type of, sort of seedy backdoors corruption to an individual like Hillary, who was disliked for a myriad of reasons, valid and not so valid. Of course, I'm not going to pretend sexism didn't play a massive role for a lot of the distrust and dislike for Hillary Clinton. But you really can't do that with Joe Biden, it's for the same reasons you laid out, John, because the actual things that you could stick to him, the Republicans are just as, if not more, guilty of doing themselves. So you can't accuse him of those things. But I will say that if transferring money to your children is now a crime, then Trump's kids should be shaking in their boots.
Yep.
True.
By the way, didn't Donald Trump get a small loan of $1 million? It was actually way more than that. But I don't know. Did you ever pay that back? Seems like influence peddling to me, Donnie boy. By the way, before we close, I just want to keep everyone on, know what you should be on the guard for, because there's this initial attempt with these new indictments that come out to say, we got him. They don't got him, they know that. This is just a couple of news cycles or whatever. But there's another way that they're using this. And if we could bring up Manu Raju's tweet, James Comer has said this, he's not the only one. I believe Maria Bartiromo said the same thing. These new indictments are proof of a cover-up. The first indictments were proof of a cover-up because they were going to be tied, then there was this plea deal, and that was proof of a cover-up. So they put pressure on Weiss to find more. Now this is proof of a cover-up because it's only on Hunter. It doesn't hit Joe, so it is by definition proof that they are covering something up. Do you see how that works? The more they dig, even when they find crimes, the crimes they find, if they don't include the president, are proof of a cover-up. So if they find something, it's bad for Biden. If they don't find something, that's proof that he's hiding it too. It's an amazing system. Doesn't make any sense, but it works for them.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.